Dean Obeidallah. He wants to be your Muslim friend.
Most Muslims, I know many, are great people.
Watch this.
People.
You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, where comedy meets politics and all things in between.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're here Monday, July 29th. And because we're still allowed, Trump hasn't gotten to us yet, but it might be in time. Who knows where we'll be broadcasting from? But right now, in studio, the one, the only, Jamira Burley, my friends, internationally recognized speaker, social justice activist, guest host on SiriusXM Progress, but right here, now, and she's doing Instagram while Facebooking and Snapchatting. She's unbelievable. She's the multitasking millennial, the one, the only, Jamira Burley. How are you, Jamira?
I'm good. How are you?
Were you doing Instagram Live there?
I was doing Instagram story.
That's a whole different nuance level of thing that I haven't done yet. But I know exactly what it is. You do it, and then it just stays up for 24 hours. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about, and that's fun, and I wish we could talk about fun things. But in the time of Trump, there's no place for fun. And it's sadly true. Let's talk about the attacks on Congressman Cummings and we'll start there, then we'll get to Reverend Al. But over the weekend, I mean, it's funny, you have Trump supporters, even one who called in and he dropped. They want to sort of piece this. Well, he was talking about the crime rate in Baltimore. You can't talk about these in a vacuum, because if you want to talk about the crime rate in Baltimore, you can tweet about that. Yeah. You say the crime rate's high. But you can't look at what Trump has said in vacuums. Mm-hmm. It's in a history, right? It's a trend. It's beyond a trend. It's a proven fact. So what was your reaction when he talked about it's drug infested, dangerous, and the worst part, no human being would live there?
I mean, it's race baiting. I was not by any means surprised by Trump's comments, but I think what it will do, and I hope it does, is put the battery in a lot of African Americans' backs in those communities, not just in Baltimore, but in cities like my city, Philadelphia, to realize we currently now have an individual in the office that is calling us not human. Right? That is saying that even a human wouldn't live in those conditions. And unfortunately, a lot of us do. And because the president of the United States hasn't put forth any policies, any practices, any real ideology about how to change those communities, except for when he uses it as a political football, when he's trying to talk about African-American politicians, I think is really disgraceful. And I'm hoping that it really charges and inspires people to get out to vote in a larger way.
I hope so too, and I hope it doesn't turn anybody to not want to get, like, they get so disgusted, like, I'm just out of here, as opposed to engaging more. And I'm not really worried. African American community has been remarkable in turnout and support the Democratic Party. Not one community is even close, because women, it was over 94%, and men just slightly below 90% who voted Democratic. There's no demographic like that. So what about, Donald Trump in his terms about no human being would want to live there? That was the one line that stuck out. And I want to play, Lauren, this is Michael Cohen in February, under oath, talking about Donald Trump, and listen to him talk about Chicago. And this is months ago. And it just shows you this is Trump. This is who Trump really is and how he views black people. Here's clip number 1, please.
Mr. Trump is a racist. The country has seen Mr. Trump court white supremacists and bigots. You have heard him call poorer countries shitholes. In private, he is even worse. He once asked me if I could name a country run by a black person that wasn't a shithole. This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way.
So there you go. In February, only black people could live that way. It is exactly like the tweets that he sent out about what's it like. The guy, he is a bigot, he's a racist, but he is the man in the White House. And when you hear someone with that kind of pulpit, that kind of platform, saying stuff about black people that no human being would live there,
I think it's so hurtful. Again, I'm not surprised, but I think it's extremely hurtful for folks who have worked so hard to live in this country, to be active and positive citizens to society, and has stood by this country, who have fought in wars, who have been productive citizens, to still recognize that we're in a time in this country where we as African Americans are not seen as human, right? This goes back to the very founding fathers of this country, where African Americans weren't seen as full human beings, and the fact that we're in 2019 and the president of the United States thinks that he has the power and the backing of the Republican Party to still treat people this way. Even members of Congress are are not safe. And so I think what it does is really send a message to the vast majority, to his supporters, that he is a person who is, although he doesn't wear the white sheet to identify himself as a racist or a member of the KKK, his policies, his practice, his rhetoric has been a clear example that he does not want a country that is diverse, and that he wants to take us back to a time where we targeted those who were different than the vast majority of people the vast majority of people who are now becoming the minority of this country. And it's really disturbing, and it's I think it's showing that the American experiment is still up for debate.
It's interesting you say that, because many times today I said, where are we going as a country? I've never been at a loss. I cannot believe what we're watching in real time. And you're so right about the framers of the Constitution, the founding fathers. Slavery was enshrined and protected in the Constitution. Then you had the Dred Scott decision years later, again, essentially saying black people who were born here weren't human beings, so you couldn't be citizens. And this has been a theme. And Donald Trump is simply just the guy in the White House who happens to be a white supremacist. There are plenty of white supremacists in this country. There are bigots out there. There are people calling for a total ban on Muslims long before Donald Trump on right-wing things. And I used to write about the vile crap I was seeing. Trump just took it to a new level when he was running for president. And so for me and my community, seeing a guy who then was the leading nominee for leader for the nomination, December 2015, saying a total complete shutdown on Muslims. And the worst part was the crowd cheering, and he got a standing ovation for like a minute. That to me said to me, what's happened to this country? I don't know this country. I don't know a part of this country, I should say.
Yeah, because Trump is one person. He is a mascot for millions of Americans who really represent. We were talking off air that like the darkest corners of America who were looking for someone to voice the very things that Donald Trump is voicing. And he feels empowered because he has his supporters who still back him, regardless of how racist, how sexist, how xenophobic he can be, how much he has threatened the very fabric of this country, because people are more consumed with protecting their whiteness and to protect the very country in which they claim allegiance to. And I think that is extremely problematic.
And then you had today Donald Trump not happy enough just to go after Elijah Cummings, to go after Al Sharpton, who, what I point out to people is Al Sharpton had done nothing unique in his criticism of Donald Trump. There were countless people on TV over the weekend criticizing Donald Trump's words, but he picked a visible black man that he could attack.
Who used to be his friend.
Right, used to be his friend. And he tweeted, Al's a con man, a troublemaker, always looking for a score, just doing his thing. Must have intimidated Comcast/NBC, saying he got some quota hire deal. Then he added, hates whites and cops. And you're like, why did you pick Reverend Al? Because his base, right-wing white people don't like Reverend Al for a long time.
Yeah.
And there's some black people who might not like Reverend Al.
I mean, people say that Al Sharpton is like respectability politics, meaning he's oftentimes willing to find compromise between very conflicted parties. Like he has sat down with members of the police department. He has sat down with members of the community. I would never claim that Al Sharpton is either uber progressive or hates the police or hates white people. That's just inaccurate.
And he doesn't care. I mean, I've talked to Reverend Al on his show, like in commercial breaks, about Trump, because he'll say something and I'm like, you know him. And he'd say, yeah, he's just not the same guy. I mean, he's been saying this for a long time, that Trump is not the same guy he knew. And the same thing happened when I interviewed this guy, Rabbi Mark Schneier, and Russell Simmons. They used to be involved in this interfaith thing before Russell moved out of the country because of allegations of rape, so he's gone. But Russell talked about it on my old show, how they brought Trump to the first mosque ever. And Russell's not Muslim, but they just did it. And he was kind of respectful. But Trump is to whatever he has to be at that moment. But what we're seeing, I think, is the real Trump. And my concern,
I agree,
is really how this trickles down. Like, because Jason called earlier, and like, you should be talking more about the racist policies that have affected the black community. And he's right about that. But I also think we have to talk about the words, because this is going to have a more immediate human impact. And what's the concern in millennial, even younger than you, the generation, they're seeing the president say, send her back, horrible things. Black people, you don't even live like human beings. You live with rat-infested, dangerous squalor.
I mean, we're constantly seeing examples of hate crimes on the rise. I mean, there was just an incident maybe a week and a half ago where a Latino mother was picking up her young child from elementary school, and she was physically attacked after folks screaming at her to go back. You have instances where young people in classrooms, I mean, where there was just an incident of 3 white young men who took spray paint and posted racist comments all across their high school the day before the graduation. And so young people are taking these actions by the president as not only the right thing to do, but they feel empowered to do it in their own communities. And it's hard for, I think, administrators and parents and even the police in many instances to tell them to stop if the very man who is in charge of this country is deeming that behavior as okay, and millions of people are backing him. So it's a very dangerous time, and I think it's only going to cause more death, more crime, and it's going to push us closer to, I think, I don't want to say it, but yeah, it's not going to be good for us.
Well, and that's what I was going to get to. Where are we going? I read quotes earlier from Madeleine Albright on she wrote a book called Fascism. It wasn't about Trump at all. I mean, it was in the time of Trump, but so she didn't mention his name, but she was about fascism in the end is about stirring people up and giving them someone to hate. And what differentiates fascism from other movements is the use of violence and anger to achieve political ends. What you almost see in a fascist regime is propaganda being used to set people against each other without any potential solutions to any of the problems. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly what Trump is doing. And so when you see this is the mentality of Trump, this is the philosophy, and you realize Madeleine Albright, an expert, saying that violence is always part of this, that I bluntly will tell you, I believe Trump wants racial violence. I don't think he wants like a race war, like a crazy war, like out of a movie type of thing. But I think he wants racial violence.
Trump, I think, is looking for his 9/11 moment. He's looking for a time where he can kind of take more power, do more fascist things. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking for a race war. I think he's looking for a moment in this country where he can point fingers and he can demonize folks and he can continue to empower his base. Because one, if Trump does not get reelected, please, Lord, if he does not get reelected, I think he's empowering his base to be more violent. We've already seen that, right? And I think that if he does get reelected, it's only going to empower folks because there's only so long you can continue to oppress people without them not responding. And I think it's putting everyone in a very dangerous position. It also, I think we should talk about the fact that in recent weeks, we've seen even police officers make very racially disturbing comments on other minorities of color and individuals of Congress. And I'm just saying he's empowering folks from all different walks of life to just be absolutely disgusting.
I agree with you. And when you look for the Republican Party, and in the book Fascism and another book, How Democracies Die, they talk about guardrails that save your country. And sometimes the guardrails, and they're great examples in how democracies die, and I had one of the authors on last year, is that people in the party of the guy who's trying to be a fascist or dictator actually stand up, or they stand up against their own political self-interest.
Have you seen that?
No, that. And today, Mark Meadows, who is truly good friends with Elijah Cummings. Yeah. He's a right-wing guy.
He was silent.
He put out a statement a short time ago saying no one works harder for his district than Elijah, which is nice about Elijah Cummings. He's passionate about the people he represents. And no, Elijah's not a racist. Could have ended there, but he didn't. And I'm friends with both men, President Trump and Chairman Cummings. I know both well, and neither is a racist. Well,
Elijah cannot be racist. So let me clarify that.
No, tell us why. I know you're going to tell us why you're going to say that. He's not a racist, but because Trump called him a racist too when he was getting attacked. He did the typical
reverse racism does not exist. Racism is a system of oppression. Donald Trump actually has an entire system of oppression behind him. So his words can actually be backed up by policy and practice. And we know that there are current systems of oppression that still exist. Mass incarceration, the criminal justice system, our educational institutions, our healthcare system, all of those are systems that oppress particularly minorities, okay? So for those who are thinking reverse racism does not exist. And so also, the last thing I need is a white man telling me and telling another person of color how they define racism and whether or not they should be the ones walking around identifying who is and who isn't racist, because otherwise many of us would probably still be in slavery right now if we waited for all white people to do that.
No, and to me, what's your reaction to Mark Meadows doing a both sider here? I know them both well, and neither is a racist.
I would have rather him just shut the hell up.
Exactly. I mean,
just shut up.
Because now this is what this is doing. This is enabling and trying to normalize white supremacy and racism.
It's what Trump did when he said there's good people on both sides.
Exactly. He both sided. He trumped Charlottesville, and that's what's scary, and that's why that. First of all, I'm angry at everyone right now. I mean, that's probably a problem. Not you, Jamira, but most people. A lot of anger. I'm angry at cable news media. And again, I'm trying to be nuanced. Not all. Some shows are fabulous. But like today, I watched some discussions. And it happened a week ago with Ilhan Omar and Rashida and everyone they were going after, where the debate is political strategy of Donald Trump. And it's kind of like we're debating tax policy. And they're not debating the racism per se. They're going, well, this is a strategy to work up his base. No, the entire discussion should be, this is white supremacy. This is racism.
Yeah.
It's horrific. It's going to get people hurt in this country. And there's no place for it in the White House. And if you even support it in any way, like Mark Meadows, you are a bigot and you are a racist just like Donald Trump. And I think as a media, as a society, if we want to change cultural norms for the better, we have to push back collectively against Trump, who's trying to move cultural norms right in front of us, where it's okay to be white supremacist. It's okay to tell an immigrant or child of immigrant, go back to your country. That's what he's doing, because if he normalizes that, he's won.
I mean, that's why it's always been funny when Trump says fake news. I mean, it's laughable on surface, but it's kind of true, right? The media has played a role in enabling him and also not giving a full spectrum of what's happening in our society. Therefore, people are so constantly consumed with news of Trump. Not only that, like, did they not forget just weeks ago or months ago, there was bombs actually sent to many of these stations targeting individuals within the media. Like, they too are at risk. Like, no one is safe when you have an individual in our country who is the most powerful person in our country, because the Senate ain't doing anything.
Right.
And he's pushing policies and ideologies that can really cause harm, like real harm.
And to the MAGA bomber you just picked up is great, because earlier in the show, July 23rd, this came out. The MAGA bomber's lawyer, and I'm reading articles right from it, the MAGA bomber's lawyer literally told a judge in an effort to defend himself that his client was radicalized by Donald Trump. He literally used those words. My client was radicalized by the rhetoric of Donald Trump. And Sean Hannity as well. He blamed both. But so you have people saying, and he's not the first.
Or even the Parkland kid, the Parkland shooter. He kept boosting that he wrote a letter to Donald Trump and he got a response back. I want to know what that letter of response was.
I don't know what it was. I'm hoping,
but no one has reported it.
But this is not the first lawyer, because I've written about this for the Daily Beast, who has cited Trump's language or Fox News or both as literally saying they radicalized my client. Now, yes, a lawyer will say anything within the bounds of law to defend their client. As a lawyer myself who used to practice law, I agree to that. But this is stunning. To put in a legal pleading that the President of the United States, his rhetoric radicalized my client, is not a normal thing you say. But that's because the lawyer can't lie to the court. His client had to tell him that. A lawyer, you can't make things up and tell the court you'll get disbarred for that. So his client is saying, Trump said all this stuff, and I thought these people were the enemy of the people. And so I'm doing what a good American should do. And that's my point. If you believe Trump's rhetoric on its face, that the media is the enemy of the people, that blacks are not even human beings, and brown people should go back to where they came from.
Because they're rapists, they're murderers. Yep.
Then why would you not attack them? Why would you not send bombs to them, or at least discriminate against them and taunt them and demonize them? Why would you not?
And what is the precedent that might be set if that individual gets off? Because
oh my gosh, he won't. It's just lessons. It would just go for sentencing. You're not excused from conduct for that. It would have to be from the only thing that would be excusing your conduct at all would be mental incapacity. And then you'd just be put in a place, a special place, not in a.
Well, can we do that
prison.
to Trump?
I wish we could do something.
Because something ain't right.
All right, let's take a break. Then how about we take some calls? A lot of people are calling about this. This is an issue that's really moved people, understandably, because it moved me. We played Victor Blackwell. Did you hear the Victor Blackwell thing? Did you see that? When we come back, I'll tell you what Fox News did about it. I'm not even kidding, right before you got here. Be right back with Jamira Burley, and we'll take some calls, 866-997-4748, on Donald Trump's attacks on Elijah Cummings, on the black community, and today on Reverend Al as well, because it does not end. And where are we heading? Do you think Trump wants racial violence or even a race war, as some people have said? And I can't believe it, because it almost seems like something you laugh at, but in this world, it's potentially plausible. I don't want to say it's going to happen, but it's potentially could happen, because that's what he wants. I mean, you have the leader of in the White House saying this garbage. Let's take a break and come right back. You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, where we crush Trump's lies every single day
on Sirius XM Progress 127.
This is the Dean Obeidallah Show, exclusively on SiriusXM's Progress.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here. Jamira Burley in studio talking about Donald Trump. I mentioned, you remember Barack Obama said there's no white America, there's no black America.
I thought that was bullshit too.
No, yeah, but I think Trump would agree with there's no white America and there's no black America. Because to Trump, there's only a white America. So of course there's no black America.
No, because we don't have power.
Everyone else is tolerated. This is, okay, let's take this. Here's Lisa in Arizona. Lisa, how are you?
Hi.
How are you tonight, my friend?
Oh man, I'm just after reading these tweets. I'm just and listening to your show. It's just amazing to me.
Tell me why.
Because it's amazing to me that calling something an infestation. Hold on one second. Okay. Yeah,
Tell me on a radio show, Lisa.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I was in the drive-thru. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's funny. What are you getting? Where
Can you get me a fry?
That's what Jamira wants, some fries. I'll take a shake, please.
I was getting Culver's.
Okay.
So it's amazing to me that calling something infestation. I mean, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Is that racist?
It's.
What do you think? Do you think it's racist?
Well, I mean, I've heard people use that term before, and I didn't know it was racist.
It's the word infestation on its own is not racist. If someone has a bug problem in their apartment or their house and it's infested, and a guy comes in and says, you have an infestation problem, that's not racist. Donald Trump, when he attacks a predominantly black community by saying it's crime-riddled, that no human being would live there, that's an infestation. And
also, he's only used infestation in reference to particularly elected officials of color. So that's not even, he doesn't use that word in reference when he's criticizing anyone else or any other group of individuals. It's only when he's referring to mostly people of color in those particular communities. So that's why that word specifically stands out.
Oh, wow.
Plus, Donald Trump's a racist.
So
there's that.
So
Donald Trump has a history. So if this was the first thing he ever said ever, it would be a different discussion because we can't look at it in a vacuum, though.
Right. But my question is are black politicians allowed to be criticized?
Sure.
Of course.
Okay, but every time Trump criticizes a black person, you guys call it racist.
Because he criticizes them from a very personal, he doesn't criticize their policies. He doesn't criticize oftentimes like their views. He criticizes them personally. He takes personal attacks that oftentimes is rooted in racism. When he tells women of color to go back to their countries, knowing that 3 of those women were born here and the other one is a naturalized citizen, when he tells an African American, I'm sorry?
Okay, honey. Okay, so this is all about Democrats trying to take power. That's why you guys keep talking.
No, but
Mitt Romney was racist.
You honestly don't believe Trump is racist? Really? But
Lisa, some people have said, and you know what? Lisa's right about certain things. There was a time when Mitt Romney and other Republicans were called racist for a comment, and that comment on its own could have been racist, and they get smeared as a racist overall. Donald Trump is a man who's shown us his racism and his bigotry, who called for a Muslim ban, who's demonized black people as low IQ, and the list goes on and on and on. And Lisa, I'm sure you would believe David Duke is a racist, right? He's vile. He's despicable. Why won't Trump tweet that about David Duke, a former Klan leader who is openly supportive of Donald Trump? It's not like he's unconnected. He's literally, to this day, last week he was praising him, literally praising him for attacking the women of Congress who are of color. So why will not Trump call out the white supremacists with any kind of passion when he has no problem calling out black and brown people with all the passion in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Asking me?
What?
Did you mute me?
No, girl.
I can't.
Talking.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I think the reason with Elijah Cummings is because he's talking about Elijah Cummings and how he was acting at the immigration hearing. That's why he called out Elijah Cummings. He called Maxine Waters low IQ. Maxine Waters is low IQ. Okay?
Wow.
They don't have nothing to do with
So
her
you-
being-
Lisa, I don't know
there-
how you know that. If you did a test, Lisa, and if you're not, you're just making things up. So that's not appropriate.
But that shouldn't her talk.
You don't. I have no idea what their IQ is. Donald Trump is an idiot. But
You do realize that Donald Trump
All right.
has yet to show his college transcripts.
And-
He talked his way up going to
Lisa,
the military.
the idea of me trying to convince you that Donald Trump's a racist is a fool's errand. Like, if you do not believe he's a racist, there's nothing I can say in this conversation that's going to change your view, right? And there's nothing, you're not going to change our view. We know he's a white supremacist. We know he's a bigot, he's anti-Muslim bigot. He has policies to discriminate against the LGBT community, especially transgender Americans. He made fun of a disabled reporter. He sexually assaulted women and mocked the women who came forward. So then what can I say to you, Lisa? This is the world we live in. And 2020 is a fight. Whose vision of America is going to win? Your vision, Lisa, and Trump's, or ours? And I can tell you there's far more of us, so we're going to win, Lisa. But keep up the good fight. Not on my show. All right, let's take another call. Here's Georgette in New Jersey. Georgette, how are you?
Hi, Dean. It's Georgette again.
Oh, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, well, listen, I watched a documentary this weekend on Netflix called The Great Hack, and it has given me a total new perspective on everything that's going on. I don't know if you've heard of this woman, Carol Caldwell-Walder from The Guardian. She is on a mission to connect the dots for everyone. And there's also a professor at Parsons School of Design. His name is David Carroll, and you should have him on.
Okay.
Because he is on a mission to expose Facebook and what Facebook has done with our data sets and has given over. Everything ties into one. And we all need to step back, because what Donald Trump is doing has happened in other parts of the world, such as in Trinidad. It has happened in Brazil. It has happened in the UK with Brexit. It has happened in the Ukraine.
Right.
And it has also happened in Myanmar. So these two people, she's a journalist. She's on a mission. She already gave a TED Talk in Silicon Valley to expose Facebook. But the problem is that what is shocking to me is that Donald Trump has done this before. He did it in 2016, and we're all falling for the same trick, the same strategy. And believe it or not, the strategy is one of Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon believes that in order to change society, you have to break it. And so what they do is they try to divide and conquer. And what Trump is doing, he's race baiting. And now everybody on social media, everybody in the airways, we continue to talk about Trump and how much we hate the other side.
Right.
And this is what he wants to happen. And,
That's a good point.
I can't believe that we can't step back and say, oh, my God, he's doing it again.
But how do we step back, Georgette? Because I agree with you. You look at the definition and the way Madeleine Albright defines fascism. What you're saying is absolutely right, that fascism is about giving someone to hate, giving people someone to hate, and that the idea is to set people against each other without any potential solutions to any of the problems. And that's how a fascist wins, which is essentially chaos, but organized strategic chaos. And then violence is always interjected in a fascist regime. And Trump has called for violence in 2016. I don't have to speculate. We know what he wanted. So, Jamira, what do we do? I mean, Georgette, you're making a great point. But to me, the stakes are so high because there's hate crimes.
I have an idea.
Go ahead, Georgette.
This is one of my ideas. Well, first of all, today I deleted Facebook Messenger off of my phone. Okay. And I am minimizing my time on Facebook only to, see family things and the good things about Facebook. Okay. I do not want to turn any of my data over to Facebook because I don't trust them. The other thing is I think we need to educate ourselves. And this is not a racist country. We fought a civil war. We do know that racism still exists.
Yes.
And particularly in parts of the country where people aren't exposed to a diverse society. But we're here in New York and New Jersey and Delaware and all these places that are very, very diverse. And we understand how our diversity is our power. And we have to just educate, believe in ourselves, and believe in diversity and educate one another on what is happening, because it gets so confusing otherwise.
All right, so Georgia, let me get Jamira here into the conversation. So Jamira was nodding her head when you said Americans not racist. You know, she's a young black woman. America has a history from day one of white supremacy. We know that.
Yes.
And we're always going to have it. When we defeat Trump and Trumpism, there'll always be white supremacy. Even when they become the minority, there will still be people who have that mindset. It's a question of how do you marginalize those voices as opposed to embolden them like Donald Trump and appeal to the better people in our society. Like Georgette is saying, that the good people, how do we find them? And we have a lot on the progressive side, but they're in the middle, there's a lot. We got to get some of them. I'm not trying to get Trump supporters over. I really don't care.
I agree.
Hang on, Georgette.
Donald Trump.
I agree with Georgette in the sense of the need to continue to educate ourselves and educate our community members about having much larger and deeper conversations about race, class, and privileges in this country and how it feeds over into our politics and practice. What I will say, though, is that I think what we need to do is we need those who are the silent whites, who are the moderate whites, who are, as MLK talked about, the moderate whites who are so consumed with peace and order that they forget about pointing out what is really wrong in this country, which is the fact that we have a person in office who is racist and who has the power and the authority to actually create policies and practices that can stop people from coming into this country, that can lock up a 9-year-old girl for 2 days in this country who is an American citizen because they thought that because she was brown, she was illegal, who can incarcerate vast majority of individuals through our criminal justice system. So I think what we need is, yes, for folks to educate themselves, to ask the hard questions, but we also need folks who have the power, who do have privilege in this country, to speak up and not to be afraid to call out what we all know to be true, which is the fact that not only is Trump as president is racist, but also there are segments in our country that are racist, that are pushing his policies and his ideologies forward.
And, I want to have the Kumbaya Fest. And I say that not in a way of mocking. I think, though, the number one goal has to be defeat Trump. Then after that, I think we have to build bridges in this country. But I said the same thing in 2016. I'm like, after Hillary wins, and I was at an event with Tim Kaine, and he spoke, and he said, after this election's over and after we win, we're going to focus on reuniting our country. And then Trump won, and he's made it much worse. So I don't know how much of the country you can unite, but I do know there's more good people than bad, and that polls show that. The midterm elections, we had 10 million more votes on our side than they had on theirs in the overall national election, and Hillary won by 3 million votes. But it shouldn't be even this close. That's what's scary to me. Like, why isn't it like 10%? If you just said 10% of America's racist, I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's far more. That's the reality.
And they're not all from the suburbs, and they're not all from
the South. They're not right. They're from blue states and blue cities.
And some of them got money. Some of them are part of the 1%. And so we have to recognize that there is a diverse group of individuals who believe what Donald Trump believes, who is pushing his ideology, and are not calling out what we know to be true. And that's why you see so much violence in this country. You see so many individuals who are victims, who are becoming victims of a very fascist president. I'll call him what he is.
People called me earlier and said, well, you got to use the word fascist. I'm like, no, but now I think, and I mean, technically I think we're there. So, all right, Georgette, thanks for the call, my friend. I appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back with more of Jamira Burley, and we'll try to take some calls as well right here on the Dean Obeidallah Show. At this point, the question is not who connected to Donald Trump as a criminal. The question is anyone connected to Donald Trump who's not a criminal?
The Dean Obeidallah Show. Sirius XM Progress. And now, more of the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM's Progress.
And welcome back to the Obeidallah Show. We're live Monday, July 29th. Jamira Burley, activist, Sirius XM host, is here in studio. We're going to take a call or two more, but I want to ask Jamira, so tomorrow night and Wednesday night is the second round of debates.
Yes.
And in the first round, afterwards, there were people on air, well-intentioned, but criticizing the Democrats for not going after Trump as much. This one, I think they have no way but to avoid the Trump in the room, the racists in the room, and also talk about impeachment, because I don't think you can escape that with Mueller just testifying last week. So do you expect to hear more on a percentage basis, more about Trump and his bigotry? There'll be I can tell you, there are going to be applause lines when you slam Trump as a racist. Or do you think they should really, if you were advising them, would you say, no, say a couple of things about Trump, but stick to your policies?
I agree. I think it's a balance. They need to strike a balance between calling out what Trump did was extremely racist for those who are listening, extremely racist, and while also talking about their policies, right? There are 50,000 people in the race, and this is a time to differentiate themselves and their policies from each other, especially in the first night when you have Warren and Bernie on the same platform, and many people consider their policies to be in many cases identical, only she actually has a plan on actually how to solve any of the things that she's putting forth. But, that's another conversation. And then the second night, there's all the minorities. And so you cannot get out of this without talking about Trump and actually pointing out what he did wrong and his racist policies, while also actually calling for impeachment.
The second night, when you have, Cory Booker, there are certain people there who are fighting for their presidential political lives, for at least this cycle. Some of them are young enough to run in 4 or 8 years from now, hoping a Democrat wins in 8 years. But in that second night, the people who are outspoken, who I think will interrupt a lot, are Cory Booker, who did it last time. Bill de Blasio was in that second night. Julian Castro's there. I'm not sure how much Julian will interrupt, but I think he will. So I wonder how much of those guys are going to be like, boom, boom, boom. And it's not going to be this fireworks between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris like the first time. I just don't see them doing that.
No, I don't see there's fire between them. But I do think that people might start criticizing each other's policies as this is not the right way to take our country.
And that's the right way. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's a way to have this conversation. But I do think a lot of the applause will most likely come from people actually attacking Trump, and not attacking, but criticizing, intentionally criticizing what he's done over the last few days. But people want to hear solutions. People want to know how their life is going to change if they're elected. And that's what screwed us over in 2016. We spent so much time just talking about Trump and the boogeyman. Everyone knows he's the boogeyman. Everyone knows he ain't shit. The question is, what about your policies going to change my life? How can I differentiate you from the other candidates on the stage? And how are you going to help us win?
And that is the ultimate challenge for all of these Democrats, balancing the idea of not making it all about Trump, but you are running to knock someone out. It's not an open seat, so you're running to get somebody fired. So you got to make your argument why
especially
he's horrible.
People raising a whole bunch of money. Like Mayor Pete is raising a lot of money.
So use that platform to make the point for the American audience, because not everyone follows politics as closely as we do, but they tune in for the debate. Like, wow, Trump's a racist. I didn't know that. Now, it's stunning to hear someone would say that, but there might be someone. But also, though, advocate your positions on the key issues. For Democrats, the polling shows clearly healthcare, then climate change. I'll show the top two. And then you get down to criminal justice reform is right there. Campaign finance reform is one of the top issues as well for Democrats. But I have to ask you, this is bizarre. This Quinnipiac poll came out today. And I always tell people the methodology of the polls I cite. This gets an A rating by 538, so it's a really good poll. In July 2nd, after the last debate, in this same polling service, Joe Biden he was down to 22%, and Senator Harris is up to 20%, and Warren at 14% and Bernie at 13%. Today, brand new poll, where Biden was at 22%, he is now up to 34%, and Senator Harris, who was at 20%, is down to 11%. What happened to Senator Harris?
I don't know.
Why wasn't she building on the momentum? I think she did everything she could. I don't know what happened.
I think she was building on the momentum. And also, I think Biden played it safe. He's been very much quiet. He's been doing some small stunt speeches around the country. But for the most part, he's been relatively quiet. He has not pushed out any new policy. He has not really made news. And I think for that has allowed people, there's no room to really criticize him right now. Versus Harris has been rolling out policies, has been on media, she's actually a member of Congress. So she actually has to do her job. And so I think that's really what it is. And also we have to remember there's a 5 point margin of error. And so that can look very differently in either direction, right?
No, you're right. And the Democratic polls, they're sampling people. It's not like general election polls. you're assembling people who self-identify as a Democrat or who will likely
So they might
vote.
all be Republican saying
You have
that,
no idea,
right? You
So
just don't know.
So that's the hard thing. And the
Show me your
challenge,
card.
I was surprised that Harris went down, and I am surprised. But you're right. The more for Biden, his strength is to stay away from now till the convention.
Which is funny because on stage he looked exhausted, right? Both him and Bernie. Bernie looked like he took a nap at one point, but Biden just looked like he couldn't keep up. And I think it's going to show again on this election. I mean, on this campaign stage. I just don't think that they have the energy to withstand this type of, not attack, but this type of enthusiasm by other candidates who actually have policies and actually have like charisma and like shit to talk about beyond their own record.
It's going to be. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I wonder how the ratings are going to be.
Are you really looking forward?
I'm
to
looking
it?
forward. No, because I love politics, so I like hearing them.
Same.
And I wish though. There's less people on stage if you had it over 4 nights, so you can hear them for not 10, and the average person spoke about 6 or 7 minutes in the first 2 debates. It's remarkable. Instead of that you hear them more. But I'm looking forward to the ABC poll actually when they make a cut, and it's going to be less people on stage, so that the top tier is there, and then we can watch them, and people get more of a sense like what they're really about. That's what I want to see.
And I will say I've seen better high school debaters, so they need to step their game up.
All right, do you want to take a quick call here?
Sure.
Let's see. Here is here's Amir in Minnesota. How are you, Amir?
How you doing?
Pretty good, my friend. You're on with Jamira Burley here.
Hi, Amir.
Hey, Jamira.
Our name is almost
How you
similar.
Doing?
Hey.
I'll talk to you in the morning.
Oh, great.
Oh, you did?
He calls, yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, yeah, not Danielle on there in the morning, so even more fired up in the morning. But we know Trump's a racist.
Right.
To that young lady that called, was she sitting in the drive-thru when she called?
She was in a drive-thru when she called in.
Are you serious?
She didn't even offer me fries.
Woman.
I feel really disappointed.
Right. But okay, how he speaks on urban cities is different how he speaks on anyone or about black people, as you all stated. He's criticized Nancy and Chuck Schumer, but if you look at the words that he's used for them, it's totally different what he uses for black people.
Yep.
And just because he's taking pictures with a black person doesn't mean he's not a racist. So all of you out there that think that the man's still a racist, but my biggest point was it's a lot bigger thing going on, and Steve Bannon is the main corporate in this. And early this year, white supremacists were over in Finland, doing their little military drills. You have white supremacists being able to march down the urban city in Detroit because they got a white mayor who allowed it. You have white supremacists actually training every weekend for war. So all the liberals out here,
I just want to be free.
I understand. I want to be free too, but you want to know something? The unfortunate thing, with freedom comes death. And some of us gonna have to die in order for others to be free.
Let's hope we don't. Let's hope we can just win with ballots.
Damn, Amir, I thought you were gonna at least come on here with a little bit of positivity.
Well, no, it's positive because it's the whole point of once it does happen, then we can end this shit because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of these races. They should have did this after the Civil War. What do you happen after when you?
But Amir, you could fight. You could do. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but we could fight. Let's just say you fight an entire race war, and the good people win. And the people who like all the things we like, racism won't be gone in this country. It'll just be moved to the sides, and it'll still fester there. We're always going to have it. Our thing has to be to continually be aware of it, to fight against it, and marginalize their voices to the fringes. They have every right to speak their garbage. This is America, and I believe in that. But we got to marginalize them, and Trump has done the opposite. He's in Bolton. I got to go to Amir. Last word, my friend. I got to go to break. I have no choice. Anything? Oh, he's gone. All right. Nice talking to you, Amir. Let's take a break.
Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And we're back. Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Monday, July 29th, in studio. Jamira Burley talking about Donald Trump and racism. And how many times have we had this conversation, Jamira, like about the racism that's coming out of the White House? It seems like we've had it. So many have had it over and over and over.
We have. I feel like every single time I'm on here, actually, we're addressing Donald Trump's racism. And I feel like we should just all agree that he's racist.
We do. I mean, we do. And you know, I hear what callers are saying, like, well, let's talk about policies. Let's talk about other things. And I believe in that very much.
But you got to do it. Yeah,
I feel like we are fighting the fight to not allow this to be normalized. I can assure you, if this is normalized, Trump wins. That's what he wants. He wants white supremacy to be normal American values, and we can't allow that to happen. That's on our watch. So, Jamira, where can people follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me at Jamira Burley on Twitter and Instagram. I'll be tweeting all day tomorrow and Wednesday about the debate. Yep, follow me.
All right, folks, check her out. Thanks, Jamira. Thanks for coming in. In the next hour, we're going to take some calls, but Congressman Seth Moulton, who's a 2020 Democrat, will be here for part of the hour, so stick around for that. He'll be live in studio. Be right back with more of the Dean Obeidallah Show.